Alright, now that we have our alignments completed, we have our horizontal alignment and we have our vertical alignment. Now we want to begin to look at corridor, and in order to do that we have to develop a template or an assembly. And last time we just kind of pulled one up that was pre-created. So what we're going to do is actually create one, and we're going to start with generating an assembly, and the assembly uses what's called an assembly baseline, and we will attach to that different features that we want to build into this. Now if you were doing this from scratch, you'd obviously have typical sections that you're following guidelines, or building your own possibly, but usually you'd be following some kind of DOT standard. And Civil 3D has a lot of things in there that are similar to that, but they can be modified. So what we're going to do is go over here to the Home tab, Assembly, and what we're going to do is create an assembly, and it'll ask us for a name. So what we're going to do is call this Assembly State Route 202. Under assembly type, let's see, we're going to call this, we're going to use a divided or an undivided crowned road, and I'm going to use a basic style and have it generate all codes. So I'm going to hit OK. And what this is going to do is want us to place this little assembly marker. So we're going to go ahead and place this first. And you want it somewhere out of the way. Oh, it's taking a minute to do this. I'm not sure why. Okay, there it is. So what you have is this little marker, and this guy is the thing that you're going to attach to the profile. So this is the, more or less it's typically representing a center line, but it doesn't have to represent center line. And the center of this symbol right here is the thing that actually attaches to your profile. And the profile could be top of pavement, it could be sub-base, could be just about anything really. But we're going to have it represent a top of pavement for us. So what we're going to do is open up a palette right over here, tool palette, and in here you will find a collection of different types of assembly pieces. And the other time we used, I think out of basic, we grabbed one of the ones, or I forget which one it was, but we grabbed some different things that were already there. So what we're going to do is start out with lanes. So we're going to go to the lanes tab here, and notice they've got all different kinds in here. Now once you get into this, you can actually create your own assembly pieces, and that's something that you might want to consider doing. They do have a new little program out there called Assembly, a sub-assembly editor. I forget the name of it is, but it's actually a separate program that allows you to build your own. But we're going to generate ours using their pieces already there. So I'm going to start out with this guy called Crowned Lane. I'm going to do that. And when you do that, it opens up your properties dialog box, and within that we can set up different parameter settings. So what I'm going to do is look for the lane width, and we're going to make our lane width 24 feet instead of 12. And if we look through there, we have all different types of things like the slopes on the top of the pavement, the base slope and depths, and so we can build all of that into that. Like I said, it's already there, but we can also change that. So what I'm going to do then is just select this, and it's like a snap. It just snaps onto it, and you'll notice now what we've done is generated our pavement. It's got a crown. Okay. So this is composed of a lot of different lifts, if you will, and those all have depth settings, and they have width settings and slope settings, material settings, and those can all be changed, as we said. And this thing is what's called a shape in terms of Civil 3D type of language. So what we're going to now do is go to a shoulder. So we're going to attach a shoulder. And we have a lot of different types of shoulders, and again, you can pretty much find mostly what you're looking for, but if you have something that you want to create your own unique one, you might want to go into that subassembly composer program that Civil 3D has now. So what we're going to look for is one that is called I think I'm going to use the shoulder extended subbase. Okay, so and with that, what I do is want to make a look at some of the parameters on this. Right now it's set to a width of 8 feet, and and I'm going to go ahead and leave it to that. I'm going to leave the slopes alone, but what I do have to recognize is there is going to be one on the left and the right side. This one is set up to go to the right side right now. What I'm going to do is set it up to left first, and then come over here, and I select this little point right here. That's what I want it attached to. And then I'm going to come over to the right side and do the same thing so that I can see that, snap to it, and then we're going to enter that. Okay. Now what we notice here is that there's kind of a mismatch right here. I really want these two guys, the blue, bottom of the blue to touch. And what's happening here, if I notice, I'm going to click on this guy, go to properties, or I can go to the subassembly properties here, assembly properties, construction, and I can look at the crowned lane. What's happening in here is the subbase is at a 3% and the top slope is at 2%. So what I'm going to do is change that to a -2, and we're going to do that for both left and right so that we can get these to match up. Apply those changes, and you'll notice it looks like it fixed it. Click out of there, and there we have it. Okay, so we've built two more pieces to this. So now what we're going to do is add some daylight information. Now, by and large, the pavement stuff and the shoulder stuff is pretty straightforward, but when you really get into the heart and soul of all of this, it really comes down to these daylights. And there's a lot of very interesting things within the daylights, and they have conditions associated with them, and ditch sections and all of that kind of stuff can be built into it, or you can actually build your own based on different types of link slopes and that. So you really have a lot of flexibility, but you kind of have to come sit down and play with it. And that's kind of the best advice I can give to you if you're really going to be dealing with very comprehensive highway stuff. So what I'm going to do is we're going to look for a standard one. So we're going to look for daylight standard. Daylight standard might be down below. I'm just missing it. There it is, daylight standard. Now this has lots of parameters, and we're not going to really investigate all of those right now, but what I'm going to do is pretty much let it do its thing. This will have a ditch section built into it with 4 slopes, and then it'll have criteria to daylight for us. So what we are going to do is we're at set to right. Again, I'm going to go ahead and go to left. I'm going to attach that to this point right here, and I'm going to do the same thing on the right. Attach that over here. And I've got it. So that's what we're going to be dealing with. Now then this is going to be doing, here's your 4 slopes, there's your ditch section, and this is your actual daylight line. So this guy right here would be what we would typically call our hinge point, because it can hinge up or down from that to where the daylight section is going to occur. This is a very involved type of section or subassembly that we're adding. And like I said, again, you need to play with these to really get a feel for them. I'm going to show you a little bit here. If I'm going to close this, if I click on this subassembly, I can right click and go to subassembly properties. And what it's looking at is this one called daylight standard parameters. There's all your parameter codes. But one of the things that I would suggest to really get a feel for this, there's this thing called subassembly help. You can click on this. And what this will do is send you to the information that specifically outlines and details each of the aspects, what's happening, so you can see what the force slope width actually is, what your force slope percentage rate is set to, your ditch width, and all the different parameters. And if you scroll through here, you'll see that this really does explain it in a very good, comprehensive manner. So again, these would be some things you need to sit down, play with, see how they affect you, how they intersect your model, all of those kind of things. You can print this out too, and I think I've included this actually as one of your PDF documents that you can kind of take a look at. So we're going to go ahead and close that, and I'm going to cancel this. So once we have our subassembly or assembly built, we can go in here and move things around. You can swap pieces out. You can move pieces. That's really easy to get that set up. And by just clicking on this guy or any piece of it, it can allow you to select the whole thing. And what you do up here is you can get into your subassembly properties, and then this will actually show you the whole thing, and then I can just click on the piece that I want to talk about, and it shows me those properties and what it's going to be utilizing. Okay, so what we're going to do is go ahead and cancel that, escape out of there. So there's our subassembly. So what we're going to now do is generate a corridor based on these different types of things. And one thing I want to mention too, these subassemblies can be really involved in terms of the fact that we have not only a centerline attachment point that's following a profile in a horizontal cross section or horizontal alignment, but you can also have things like ditches that are traveling maybe at a different profile. So in other words, this slope is not constant here. What may be happening is this is kind of acting like a hinge point, and you have a profile that the ditch is following. So we can attach another attachment point to this, to a separate or secondary profile that the ditch can follow, and also a horizontal alignment that's associated with that. So your ditch may not only be dropping at a different rate than what is forced here, but it could also be increasing or decreasing distance with respect to the roadway corridor. So what we're seeing is these lines don't necessarily have to be parallel, like this one doesn't have to be parallel to that kind of thing. So you can do a lot with these templates, and this is where it really kind of makes and breaks the whole process. So what we're going to do now is generate our corridor. Okay, so what we're going to do is go to a corridor. We're going to create this corridor, and we're going to call this corridor State Route 202. Okay, I'm going to use a basic style. I'm going to use the State Route 202 alignment. So notice that's really all we have in there. We are going to use the profile set to the proposed profile. So it normally defaults to existing ground, and what's happening is if that's the case, your template just kind of lies along this red line here, and of course it's not going to give you what you really want to see. I do that many times, so what I'm going to do is grab the right profile, and then since I have an assembly in here, I need to grab the assembly. Okay, so we've got the alignment at 202, we have the profile State Route 202, and we have our assembly State Route 202. Now, you don't have to do this at this step, but a lot of times I will like to go ahead and put a target surface in there. So I'm going to go ahead and have it target my existing ground so that I can get my daylight lines. So I'm going to go ahead and OK this. And what you're going to do is immediately come to this box. Now, we'll have a lot more to say in this box, especially when we get into our intersections, but there's a lot of information that happens in here, and you can fix things if something's wrong. Like for instance, if it's not following right, you can actually click on here and change your profile to the right profile. Or if you're not following the right assembly, you get the wrong assembly. One of the things we might want to do is beef up some frequencies. Right now we're set to every 25 feet. Frequency is how often it's going to cut a cross section for you. So 25 feet might be a nice frequency for most applications, but you may want to actually set that up to a little bit higher range if we look at that. So for instance, along tangents, we've got every 25 feet. At the curve, I probably want to put that at an increment. Okay, so we'll have our curve increment at every 25 feet. If you're doing spirals, you can sample your spirals at a certain rate. We can also do at alignment geometry points, and this is nice if we do that. It'll actually should do it at like at our PCs and PTs kind of thing. Profile along the profile. So this is your horizontal alignment, and then it can sample differently. So again, you can sample at geometry points, offsets. So you can also add selected points. So for instance, if you had something like maybe a driveway, what you can do is go in, click on this, and select the point you want it to actually sample. So for instance, I could have it sample, let's say, at that station for whatever reason, and then hit enter, and what that's going to do is add that as another sample point along my corridor. So I'm going to just go ahead and click on that and delete it since we really don't need that. Okay, so what we're going to do then is look at targets. Even though I've set the targets, I always want to check my targets. So I'm going to look at my targets. Make sure that for your target surface, it says e.g. existing ground, and what it's targeting, or what is targeting that, is your daylight standard subassembly. Okay, and everything else is set good. So we're going to go ahead and OK that. We're going to apply these kind of things, build your corridor, and OK this, and we should now see our corridor in place. And what's interesting is everything's right there. You've got where you have cut areas, it's showing me red. Where I've got fill areas, it's showing me green. Now it's not going to be perfect because we have somewhat of a wacky DTM right here, so you can notice it's got some weird things going on here. I might get better results if I go to a higher interval, maybe 10 feet, something like that. But notice it's sampled at my PCs and PTs for me. That's good. So let's take a look at our corridor real quick. What I'm going to do is go into 3D orbit, and we're going to look at this thing in 3D orbit view, and I can kind of get a little sense for what's happening here. And I get out of 3D orbit, I can see what's going on with that. And there's my corridor nicely. You can kind of see how the daylight line, there's my daylight line, there's my daylight line on the outside. So let's do this real quick. What we're going to do, go back to plan. Remember, the easiest way to go back to plan is to hit top here. Okay, keep it in a wireframe view for now, but what I am going to do is I want to get rid of my surface here because I want to do a real quick drive through. And if I drive through with this on, sometimes it's going to get down into the roadway or across the roadway surface. So what I'm going to do is go to my surfaces, EG, and I'm just going to set that to no display. So we're going to apply that and OK that. And we're going to click on our corridor, and we're going to do this thing called drive, which we've done before. Click on align, hit crown. Takes us into this view. Right now we're set to go right down the center of the street, so what I'm going to do is go over 12 feet. I'm going to say 12 feet over and bump my speed up to 60 miles per hour. I'm in a conceptual view. It doesn't actually let me change it here, but it does give me this as a conceptual when it comes into it. Let's see if we want to change anything else. Might raise my eye level just a little bit. I want to get it just a little bit higher so I can see what's going on with that. And we're going to go ahead then and play it and see what happens. And we're noticing now what we're looking at. We see that we've got our surface. We can see that we've got our cuts happening. And you've got fills, and we're running through. Everything's looking pretty decent. What you're noticing, that little dashed line is actually your existing ground surface that you're seeing. That's why sometimes it disappears, because sometimes it's in a fill situation. So that looks good that way. So what we're going to do is reverse this process. And when we reverse it, I want to reverse the side of the lane I'm on, so I'm going to do a -12 now. And again, let's go over there, and we're going to go ahead and play that. And again, you can kind of look at the other direction that's happening there, and we'll see what's going on. And that's all looking pretty good. We might want to turn our guardrails on, so I think we'll make that change. And everything else looks pretty good. Okay, so I'm going to close this. So let's going to say that maybe now we want to make a few changes here. Now remember, this corridor is driven by both the horizontal alignment and the vertical alignment. So anything that you make changes in either of those, and actually the third thing it's driven by is the template. Any change made in any of these will actually change your corridor automatically. So what we're going to do is make a few changes to this, and I want you to notice, I don't know if we'll be able to do this so we can see them together. Well, let's do that. Actually, we can. What we're going to do is create a view so that we can have this on one side and this on the other. So what I'm going to do is go into view, and I'm going to create a viewport that is called to horizontal. Okay, and in this viewport, I'm going to pan it so that I can see my corridor. And we're going to do a little twist here. So I'm going to go into a command called dview. And you don't have to do anything, just hit enter. Go into TW for twist. and we're going to twist this 30 degrees and then hit enter again. What we've done is kind of rotated that view. So it gives me a little bit bigger picture. Okay, I'm going to come down here now, make this guy active, and I'm going to zoom this guy in, and we'll see what's going on. So we can kind of see both together, and this would be what we would call plan and profile view. Alright, so having this active, I'm going to go ahead and click on this guy, and we're going to do some geometry edits. So we're going to go to the geometry editor and select the panorama. I'm going to make my panorama a little bit smaller so we can kind of see what's going on, and maybe we can see what's happening in both of them that way, and move some stuff around so you can see what's going on here. So I have a sheet there that has another PVI station report kind of thing, and what I've done is made some changes. So what we're going to do is change some grades and play with those a little bit, because we figured out maybe that we want to make a few changes in terms of PVI location and those kind of things. So what I first want to do is under station 3 plus 50, what I want to do is change that percent grade up a little bit. So I'm going to bounce that to 525. Okay, and that made a change here. Now we're going to see that it's not making an instantaneous change. We're going to have to rebuild this, but you'll see a change happen once we kind of get it done. So I'm going to move this up, but you will see changes occurring down here. So notice also on my final alignment, I want this to be, instead of 875, I'm going to go to that 800 on that one. Okay, now that's locked in, so let's see. I want to go back to 525 here. Okay, so 525 at 800, and I'm going to change this station to 1200, and the percent grade, instead of a negative 66, it's going to be a negative 2.5. Okay, so we have that now. In the last station, we're going to make this change. It's going to be 1650. Okay, and you notice your PVIs are changing, and we're going to make that percent grade 6%. So we've got that maxed out pretty much. And so we should be a negative 2% to a 5.25, negative 2.5 to 6, and then that's going to be what it is. Notice your percents there, we're all good. Okay, so notice what we have. Hit the escape key. We've made some changes here now, and you can look at that, and all of those have been reflected on that. Oh, and the other thing I forgot to do, let's make this curve a little bit bigger. We should have done that while I was in there. So I'm going to go ahead and edit this guy again, and instead of a 200-foot vertical, we're going to make that a 400-foot vertical. Okay, so that increased that. So now all of these changes have created issues. The corridor knows that they've happened, but it doesn't have a rebuild on them. So let's go back. What we're going to do is go back to a single viewport configuration, and we can go back and look at this now. What we'll notice is if we go to our corridors right here, you have this symbol which says, hey, something's happened. To change this, and what you need to do is rebuild this. So what I'm going to do is go in here, click on that, I'm going to hit a rebuild, and you'll notice that your corridor made changes, and primarily we increased a little bit of some cut and fill issues there. So what we're going to do now is I want to go to the template, and I want to turn on guardrails, and the guardrails are here. So I'm going to go to this subassembly, and let's go to the construction. Daylights, I'm going to go to daylight left and daylight right. So this is the left side. There should be one here called omit guardrail, include guardrail. It says omit. Let's go ahead and include the guardrail. So when you have cuts or fills rather, this is going to show up. Let's go to the other one now and have that turned on that one as well. So we're going to now go into this. We're going to include our guardrail and apply those changes. Probably again our corridor recognizes there's some issues, so let's go ahead and rebuild it. Okay, so we've got that there now. Okay, so everything's good. Do a save. And let's check this out now real quick. We'll do a real quick drive down on this guy. I'm going to drive it. Pick it. Go with that. And again, my settings are remaining the same. I'm going forward. I'm going to go ahead and make that 12. I think I'm on the wrong side. Maybe I am, maybe I do want it negative 12. That looks right. Okay, so go ahead and play that. And you'll notice now, you can see your guardrails now showing up where they weren't before. But any of those changes that we've made, again, everything's looking pretty decent. We made a few changes on the percent grades and different curves. We should be hitting that real big sweeping vertical curve here soon. I think we're into it right now, coming down. And so we're good to go on this. So we're going to go ahead and exit. And at this point then we've got that. So the other thing we can do here is go into our section editor. So highlight that, come down here, hit my section editor. Let's see, corridor section editor. And what I can look at now is, if you remember we looked at that last time, this is really kind of neat because it'll show me where I am along this. So as I start to get into this, you can see the white line that occurs here, here, here. It shows you what station you're at. And then you also have the zoom capability, so I can zoom to subassembly. So I just pick what piece of the subassembly I want. I've zoomed in. It gives me information within that, and I can just kind of keep going by station. Now it took me to the end. Go backwards, station at a time. And you can kind of see how this is working, and I might want to zoom that out so I can do my zoom extents on that. But you can really see what's going on here in terms of your ditches, those kind of things. Okay, so everything looks pretty good as far as we're concerned from our design standpoint. So we're going to kind of finalize things up here and then do a final, we're going to go ahead and do a final surface on this. So I'm going to go ahead and do a save. And then we'll pick up with that.